we go. Here's Sotomayor's dissent. Remember, Kagan and Jackson joined her. And then we're going to get a separate dissent also from Jackson. Guys, I'm really pissed off by this. Whew. Whew. Okay. Children born in the United States and subject to its laws are United States citizens. That has been the legal rule since the founding, and it was the English rule well before then. This court once attempted to repudiate it, holding in Dred Scott versus Sanford that the children of enslaved Black Americans were not citizens. To remedy that grievous error, the states passed in 1866 and Congress ratified in 1868 the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause, which enshrined birthright citizenship in the Constitution. There it has remained, accepted and respected by Congress, by the executive, and by this court until today. It is now the president who attempts in an executive order to repudiate birthright citizenship. Every court to evaluate the order has deemed it patently unconstitutional, and for that reason has enjoined the federal government from enforcing it. Undeterred, the government now asks this court to grant emergency relief, insisting it will suffer irreparable harm unless it can deprive at least some children born in the United States of citizenship. The government does not ask for complete stays of the injunctions, as it ordinarily does before this court. Why? The answer is obvious. To get such relief, the government would have to show that the order is likely constitutional, an impossible task in light of the Constitution's text, history, this court's precedents, federal law, and executive branch practice. So the government instead tries its hand at a different game. It asks this court to hold that no matter how illegal a law or policy, courts can never simply tell the executive to stop enforcing it against anyone. Instead, the government says it should be able to apply the citizenship order to everyone except the plaintiffs who filed this lawsuit. Okay? The gamesmanship in this request is apparent, and the government makes no attempt to hide it. Yet, shamefully, this court plays along. A majority of this court decides that these applications of all cases provide the appropriate occasion to resolve the question of universal injunctions and end the centuries-old practice once and for all. In its rush to do so, the court disregards basic principles of equity as well as the long history of injunctive relief granted to non-parties. No right is safe in the new legal regime the court creates. Today, the threat is to birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship. The majority holds that, absent cumbersome class actions, courts cannot completely enjoin such plainly unlawful policies unless doing so is necessary to afford the formal parties complete relief. That holding renders constitutional guarantees meaningful in name only for any individual who are not parties to a lawsuit, because I will not be complicit in so grave an attack on our system of law I dissent. Holy shit. Okay, that's the beginning of Sotomayor's dissent. Again, Kagan and KBJ joined her. I want to now read the beginning of KBJ's dissent. Sotomayor wrote a very lengthy dissent. It's obviously the main dissent. But I also, sorry for my scrolling, my fast scrolling, but it's long. Okay, still here. Okay, let's get to KBJ. Here we go. Her dissent is shorter, but let's read. Oof. The power to compel the executive to follow the law is particularly vital when the relevant law is the Constitution. When the executive transgresses an act of Congress, there are mechanisms through which Congress can assert its check against the executive unilaterally, such as, for example, asserting the power of the purse. But when the executive violates the Constitution, the only recourse is in the courts. Eliminate that check, and our government ceases to be one of limited powers. After all, a limit that does not confine the person on whom it is imposed is no limit at all. I'm sorry, I was reading her section 1 of her opinion. That's key. I want to get to her intro, though. Here we go. I agree with every word of Justice Sotomayor's dissent. I write separately to emphasize a key conceptual point. The court's decision to permit the executive to violate the Constitution with respect to anyone who has not yet sued is an existential threat to the rule of law. It is important to recognize that the executive's bid to vanquish so-called universal injunctions is, at bottom, a request for this court's permission to engage in unlawful behavior. When the government says, quote, do not allow lower courts to enjoin executive action universally as a remedy for unconstitutional conduct, end quote, what it is actually saying is that the executive wants to continue doing something that a court has determined violates the Constitution. Please allow this. That is some solicitation. With its ruling today, the majority largely grants the government's wish. But in my view, if this country is going to persist as a nation of laws and a nation and not men, the judiciary has no choice but to deny it. Simply stated, what it means to have a system of government that is bounded by law is that everyone is constrained by the law, no exceptions. And for that to actually happen, courts must have the power to order everyone, including the executive, to follow the law, full stop. To conclude otherwise is to endorse the creation of a zone of lawlessness within which the executive has the prerogative to take or leave the law as it wishes, and where individuals who would otherwise be entitled to the law's protection become subject to the executive's whims instead. Whew. Okay. It's where we are. We have the dual state. I will have more to say about this on Monday. I want to thank you for sticking with me. I don't want to stay around for all the other decisions. I thought this one would come last. I think we have heard enough from the court today. Thank you for joining me. And with that, I bid you all adieu.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Talk Show. Well, how come everyone? Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together. Gen Talk Show.